Oh, morning. Now it is absolutely bloody freezing today. It's not that bad as in about -2, but it's the wind chill, isn't it, Billy? It's the wind chill. We've got a cold wind coming in, so it's cold. Now we're going to look at shelters today. Now my favourite shelters are generally the debris shelters. I do them all the time for survival situations, and you can make them really quick without any tools or anything like that. It's all about the resources that are available to you in the area. Now you've got to adapt to the resources that are around you. Now today we're going to build a different type of shelter. I was out a few weeks back in some pretty cold temperatures, and I built a quick shelter, but only a very simple one. That was what was available with me around without any tools. I'll show you a quick clip of that. Now that shelter was better off with a fire. You can see gaps in it and what have you. I could have done it more as a debris shelter and filled it up better, but it gave me a bit of protection. Yeah, and if I was stuck and it was and what was available to me, it gives me a bit of protection and took the wind off me, and it was a lot warmer inside that shelter. But granted, it was better with a fire. But you've got to weigh up the pros and cons. If you're going to spend time moving stuff around and collecting stuff and building a shelter, you've got to do a decent job. My knees are freezing on the floor here. You've got to do a decent job, or you'd be better crawling under something like this and covering yourself up. Yep. One of the biggest things is insulating yourself from the ground. If it's going to rain, obviously you're going to need something over the top of your cover. But I'm going to show you what we're going to do today. This is a simple, quick survival shelter using minimal resources. Yep, what's around us, what's on the floor, deadfall. You can do it without tools. I'm going to use a few tools today. It's great to train without tools, etc. But sometimes, you know, don't want to make it too hard for myself every time. So we're going to knock a quick survival shelter up. Yep, stick with us and have a look what we're doing, and we'll talk you through the process as we go along. Cheers. Right behind me, we're talking about using the natural resources. I know, there's a rule. We've got the prevailing wind from the southwesterly. So I know I've got a wind that's coming in from behind over there, and it's going to be cold. It is cold. So I want to protect myself from that wind. So, in between me and the wind, there's a big tree there. This is what we're going to use. We're going to use that tree. I'm also talking about resources. I'm looking for a relatively thick canopy over the top of me. Yep, if you check below the trees, you can generally tell whether they get wet or they stay dry. Some trees, you might look like they're going to get wetter than they do, and when you look, they're relatively dry. Other trees look like they've got a great canopy, and yet the ground's wet underneath. So check the tree. I'm looking around me, there's loads of resources around here, lots of fallen trees. Lots of storm fallen trees, lots of wind blown. Also it's all over the deck, so I've got plenty of resources around here. I've got enough resources to build a decent fire as well if I need to, but this shelter's not going to be one for a fire. This is going to be one that you can build quick with minimal resources, that's going to keep you warm for the night. A bit like a debris shelter, but in a slightly different format. Yeah, slightly different. It's another alternative. Yeah, so let's sort this tree out and we'll crack on with that. So I'm looking for something I can sit down in. I'm going to build myself a slight seated platform under here. But this is going to be my ridge line. I'm in a seated position, a bike rest. I'm going to build myself a little bit of insulation up under here. This can be cattails, moss. I'll start with some decent rounds of wood to get myself off the ground. I've got a little bit more headroom there so I can raise it up slightly. I'm sheltered, I'm facing the east, which is a nice way to face in this situation more or less. So in the morning I get the sun coming up, so if the sun's warm I'm going to get that heat straight away in the morning. But I'm using minimal material, so I want it small to catch my body heat. So that just above my head with the canopy of the tree as well is going to insulate me. We want as much insulation on here as possible, and obviously it depends what resources you've got. You can layer it up from the bottom if you've got enough natural resources from trees and like tiles, if you will. So start on the bottom and then keep layering them up, usually with the twitch them round so you've got the underside facing outwards. That's the best way to lay it, so they're curving like that, and stagger them up like tiles. If you've not got those sort of resources, you've got to look for what you've got. I've spotted some bark around here, so we're going to use some bark. We're going to use some general pine needles and leaves off the floor. We've got a good pile of spruce needles on here, but not enough. They could do with more, but there's not that resource around here for fallen trees, etc. But in a survival situation you'd use whatever you could. So let's keep cracking on with this build. Now we're in cold, dry conditions, so we're not expecting rain, so we're not too bad as long as it's going to hold this warmth in. I still want to make it relatively thick to hold the warmth in, but I'm not too bothered about rain getting through because we're in cold, dry conditions. We might get a bit of snow, but what I want to do is I want to make a nest inside here. Bearing in mind we're not having a fire with this, so we need a nest of materials that we can get wrapped up in inside. So I'm going to start with plugging the gaps with boughs, and then I'm going to line the bottom with as much stuff as I possibly can. So basically I want to be as snug as a bug in a rug. This is going to be my insulation. From the ground and all around me. And like I said, you've got to use what's available. I mean, I'm practicing today, so I'm not going to rape and pillage the forest for moss and stuff like that. But in a survival situation, I'd fill this with as much fluffy dry moss as I could as well. So in that survival situation, provided you've insulated it enough, get as much stuff on the outside as possible, get yourself in there and wrapped up. It's unbelievable how much warm it is. Just being sheltered from the wind and wrapped up with these. And insulated from the ground with a nice thick layer. "52 minutes to make, so not too bad. You could probably make it quicker. But if you've got the resources to hand, really handy, you can smash it off in no time. But it does the job, that. So yeah, it does the job. But there is other shelters. This is just one. It's a small one with limited resources. You're going to have to sit up all night, but it'll keep you warm. You might not be the comfiest, but it'll keep you alive, and that's the main thing. Check out a few of my other shelters that I've built. Yep, always building shelters. It's a great skill to have, but obviously be careful about the environment. We don't want to destroy the environment. We're already practicing. In a real life situation, you'd use whatever you had to use to stay alive. And we're practicing respectful of the forest. Right, time for a bit of steak and mushrooms. Let's crank this fire up and let's get some scran on. Be a bit cow, big lad. Hey, I'll get you some good grub in a minute, lad, and we'll get out for a wander, eh? This one's going to be yours, Billy, isn't it? You won't cook it too much, eh? Put a little bit more on that side. And that's yours, that, Billy. That's going to be yours. Your scran, isn't it? Yum, 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 yum. He's tied up today because he's been a little bugger. Disappearing, chasing things. Aren't you, pal? Been a little bugger. Yeah? Nice. Hey Billy, want a steak? Come on, what's this? Look at that. That'll be alright for him, won't it? What's this, Billy? Yeah. Ah. Is that nice? Is it too hot? Yeah. Good boy. Oh, you enjoyed that, didn't you? We good, that. We good. Thanks for joining us again anyway. Rick T Outdoor Adventure, and give us a subscribe if you will. Even a share would be fantastic. But yeah, stick with us and come back and visit us again sometime. But good morning, Arctic Forest. Just had a nice bit of steak and what have you sorted. So, but yeah, keep this in your toolbox. It's a decent little shelter. It doesn't have to be massive. You don't have to be able to lie down. As long as you can get in it and you're out of the elements, you're going to stand a better chance of surviving the night if you're stuck out somewhere. Obviously you're sat up all the night, it's not the comfiest, but you will get some sleep. I've slept in these before and I've managed a few hours kit, and yeah, they're alright. Just keeps you warm, keeps the wind off you, keeps the elements out, get wrapped up in all that undergrowth that you can stuff in there, and you're right. But yeah, thanks for joining us anyway. Rick T Outdoor Adventure, and we'll catch you all again soon. Look after yourselves.